Hi, I am Christian Dittmer, and no matter how many times I film this video, there is always going to be a flaw, and everything I make will be imperfect in some way, so it's kind of pointless to keep re-filming it over and over. But, okay, this is just my attempt to grasp what my own take on morality is as a concept by examining the implications of my take on metaphysics. So, metaphysics is just the study of existence, basically. Whether the universe exists independently of the mind, or whether it's controlled by a higher power, stuff like that. I would call myself a metaphysical realist, so I believe the universe exists independently of our mind, of our minds, contrary to beliefs like solipsism, which says the only thing that we can ever prove exists is our mind, and there's nothing else. But yeah, that's not me, and I also don't believe everything is controlled by a higher power, but that's leading into a different discussion. Another quality that I think is utterly inherent to our reality is imperfection. Literally everything is flawed. Sometimes you have to look a bit harder to find a blemish, but it's there. Things like art, while they may be beautiful, are still imperfect, but maybe that's why we find them beautiful. Without dissonance, for example, music is less interesting and doesn't pull from your emotional center like it does when there is dissonance, and it contrasts with the consonants. Ironically, the most consonant musical interval is the perfect fifth. Then, yeah, imperfection makes up every part of our reality, and I think humanity as a species is the most horrible example of this. If we say that the universe itself is objective and exists external to our senses, we are completely subjective because we can only know things through sensing stuff. Every fact or truth that enters our brain immediately goes through a wave of emotion and bias to where it could no longer properly reflect the actual thing that exists. So, yeah, nothing we know is objectively true, and it's impossible to interpret something that way as it actually is. So, if we can't truly obtain or ascertain objectivity, what's the point of learning and continuing to develop these realms of thought like science and mathematics founded in our intelligent reasoning? And you may even consider, contrary to my assertion, that equations like 1 + 1 = 2 are, in fact, objective truths that we can know. But firstly, 1 + 1 = 2 is not an objective truth. It relies on like cultural semantics, specifically a fluency in the English language and a familiarization with the Hindu-Arabic numeral system. Like if you're from a different culture and you looked at that equation, you would not understand anything, or you would not understand it. So it's not true, or it's meaningless, basically. So all that equation is a symbolization of the true quantities of 1 and 2, which we could never really understand without some metaphorical representation. Symbolism is the only way we can understand anything as humans. And then, to answer the first question, yes, of course, science is still necessary. Not only is it extremely beneficial to learn about the universe in this way. But considering all the improvements in things like technology and medicine that have helped us in so many ways, ideas like the scientific method can still bring us closer to objectivity, which leads to my next point. The dichotomy of subjectivity and objectivity kind of create a spectrum with lifestyles concerning science and math on one end, the objective end, and then things like religion and maybe occultism on the subjective end. So all of us are somewhere in the middle, either using our rationality to get closer to objectivity or relying more on our feelings to move towards subjectivity. I should clarify that objective or subjective is not inherently good or bad. If you're more spiritual than you are rational, there's nothing wrong with that. Personally, I prefer to remain in the center because, like, yes, we can't know objective truth. I still think that we should embrace some part of us being subjective because it's inevitable, but I would still like to lean towards objectivity because science is important, more so than going back to being religious. Now that we've clearly defined those terms, let me emphasize a parallel with the other pair of antonyms, good and bad. This should start to sound familiar, but these two ideals create a spectrum on which we all lie. But unlike the other dichotomy, because objectivity can exist, the universe is objective, we are subjective, but nothing can be either good or bad. They're all just idealistic tenets that we have imagined. So in the Republic, Plato talks about the physical and the spiritual realm, where the objects of our reality are merely shadows of the true and pure forms within the realm of forms, the spiritual realm. Now, as I have implied, I'm not a spiritual person, but I still think it's a great analogy because goodness and evil are ideals which we strive toward. None of them entirely exist in our realm, only in the idealism which our subjective minds conceived of. So, in terms of morality, we can assume it is better to strive toward good than evil. So, the next question is, how do we do that? How do we know what is good? Well, I think it's time that I bring up Aristotle, Plato's eminent pupil. So he created a system of morality known as virtue ethics, where a virtue is a mean between two vices, one of excess and one of deficiency. This is called the golden mean, and here I am bringing up yet another spectrum. So one of a good example is courage. So the virtue of courage is a mean between a vice of deficiency, cowardice, and a vice of excess, rashness. Some say and refute to this philosophy that it's like really abstract, and that's kind of true. Really, any other system like deontology or consequentialism, which are two completely different and opposed philosophies, both can pretty much fit into what Aristotle was saying, regardless of their differences. So I still believe virtue ethics is one of the most consistent moral schools of thought, and if someone happens to misinterpret what a virtue is, that's just on them. The most important thing that I want to touch on concerning Aristotle's work is that it's virtue ethics. It's about practicing virtue rather than just being able to solve moral dilemmas easier. One can truly be good, or at least better, because nothing is good, if they make a habit of practicing that which is the golden mean. So, to conclude, in an imperfect world, the very best thing that you can possibly be is simply better. So, practice virtue that you may become better than you are worse. Commit virtuous acts like returning the shopping cart to the shopping cart return, and practicing communal friendship and respect. That's a kind of virtue. Doing things like that, you should do it because if more people do that, then other people are more likely to do moral things if they see other people doing it, because social conformity. And if this chain reaction of paying it forward, goes on, then the well-being of how society functions will increase, and life will become easier and better to live. At least hypothetically, it's still true that life will never be the best, and some people are just going to strive towards evil in their ignorance of what I've just said. There's more complicated things to what, or ideas concerning why someone wouldn't be virtuous. But morality, as well as the meaning of life, is completely relative and subjective. It's dependent on the individual agent. There is no one virtue or direction to existence that everyone can fit onto every realistic circumstance. There's no meaning of life that applies to everyone. It's more like a meaning of life. But simply taking the time to think about what your specific meaning of life could be, or whether you're living virtuously, will get you far enough. A good place to start to figure out something like that is by asking yourself, what is the thing that I'm hoping to attain, whether directly or indirectly, through every single action that I take? Those are just my thoughts. I felt like doing this because it was on my mind, and let me know if you want to see me tackle more questions or talk more about my beliefs. I would heavily encourage you to leave a comment, because, well, the comment section's there, and you can let me know any questions you have, or whether you have an answer to my question that I've posed. But that's really all I had to say. So yeah.